Hello, and welcome to a not-so-short explanation of the multi-genre research project. This is our final research project, our final paper in this ENG 1113 course, which means that we can finally see the end of the semester. It's coming down fast. I believe in you guys. We are absolutely going to get there. In this video, we are going to go over the multi-genre research project, what it is, what its key components are, and how to go about best composing and assembling one. We are thankfully in a position with the multi-genre research project that the title of the project itself is descriptive. This is nice for us because we can break down each of these terms in the multi-genre research project to figure out what a multi-genre research project is. Also, the fact that it is descriptive is maybe a little bit not to our benefit, as multi-genre research project is not exactly a collection of words that just flow off the tongue. But let's just jump right in. We're going to start by breaking down the first of the terms in the multi-genre research project, and that is the prefix multi, meaning many. This is not a mono-genre research project. This is a many-genre research project. Mono-genre research project would not be called such because most research papers are just assumed to be one genre. That would be the genre of a research paper. Here we're going to be composing in a number of different genres. I guess this could have technically been called the pentagenre research project, as you will have 5 genres altogether, but that would be pedantic to a fault, so I'm glad we didn't do that. Next up, we have genre. Genres are categories of art with similarities in form, style, or subject matter. It's basically a type of a thing, right? If it is an artistic artifact or an artistic project, it has at least one genre that it is a part of. Note also that genre is both a collapsible or expandable term. So for example, for writing, we have at its broadest sense 2 genres. All writing, any collection of the written word, will be either poetry or prose. Those are our 2 most basic genres. Prose, in turn, can be broken down into fiction or nonfiction. And since this is a collapsible or expandable term, we can continue to get into more and more discrete parts until we are left with young adult paranormal romance featuring vampires. Of course, here I'm giving a shout out to Annette Curtis Claus because Stephanie Meyer is dead to me and her fiction is trash. Let's talk for just a moment about genre as opposed to subgenre. So as we already spoke to, different types of art are going to be their own genres as well as within the genres of, say, fiction, right? We have lots of different types of fiction, or if we were to look at music, rock and roll would be a genre of music, whereas heavy metal would be a subgenre of it. And then if we were to get into, say, thrashcore, that would be even a more discrete subgenre of the genre of rock and roll. If you were talking to somebody about what type of movies they like, you might get answers like romantic comedies or science fiction or horror. Those would be the genre types of the movies that you were talking about, but it would only be after you found some sort of commonality in interest that you might get into preferences for creature features or slasher films, zombie movies, etc., right, which would be the subgenres within the wider horror genre. Third up, in the multi-genre research project title, we have research. Research is going to be those formalized processes of collecting and analyzing data in order to answer a question. Let's talk about what research is not for just a moment. Research is not the process of looking for sources to confirm a conclusion, nor is it finding ammunition to back up what you already believe. Now, some of the more astute viewers out there might say, hey, Mr. Weber, Comp Ed, didn't you just basically restate the same thing twice when talking about what research was not? And indeed I did, and I'm calling attention to that now because I want to really reiterate, now for the 3rd time, that research is not the process of confirming what you already know. It is instead the process of discovering what you want to know and do not yet have an answer for. So as you're doing your research, you need to keep an eye open to your own biases, and you need to be researching widely so that you can best find the answers to your questions. And last up, we have project, a planned task to be completed. Completed is going to be key there because, again, this is our last project. This is a project that has an end in sight. We have the light at the end of the tunnel, and we will get there. First up, the same thing you would do for any research process or for any research paper, you need to come up with a research question. research question can be on any topic. I have not put any limitations on the multi-genre research project as far as subject matter goes. So anything that you are most interested / least bored by is going to be a fine subject to compose your multi-genre research project on and to focus your research question on. Successful research questions have a couple things in common though. One is they tend to be open-ended. So if we were to look at a question like, what kind of data does Facebook collect from its users? Now, I personally, because I'm interested in that kind of thing, find this to be an interesting question. I would like to know what type of data Facebook collects from its users, but this is not the best research question that we could have because it has a finite number of answers, and in fact it has a very definite answer, and so it might be difficult to come up with 5 genres that you could compose that would help to answer this question, right? Which wouldn't you basically just be saying the same thing 5 different times in 5 different ways? A better question may be, is it a good thing that Facebook collects data from its users? What I like about this question as opposed to the first one is, one, it implies that you actually need to answer the first question in order to address the second, right? If you don't know what type of data Facebook collects, you are not going to be able to speak from an authorial perspective as to whether or not it is a good thing that Facebook does so. And 2, we're dealing with a value judgment here, right? How do we define what is good for the consumers of Facebook? This will require that you analyze and interpret the data and present that data in new and interesting ways in order to answer that question. I think that's a good thing. Better still might be a question like, how does data collection from social media companies affect the way users communicate, what they believe, and the state of their mental health? Here we are also going to be dealing with some sort of value judgments, right, as we're dealing with the way that communication, belief structures, or mental health are affected, specifically as it relates to data collection from social media companies. But also, as you start to research, you may find that by looking at these distinct parts or subsets of data collection in the way that they affect users, that there is one avenue of research that proves more fruitful, or that there is one type of question that you personally are more interested in answering. And if something like that occurs, you can always rewrite your research question, focus more heavily into one aspect of that original research question, and then you would compose your multi-genre research project in response to that. That is a good thing. Before we continue, I do want to make a note though on the fact that I am not trying to steer you in the direction of a 3-part thesis or a 5-paragraph model essay, right? If you were to avoid 2 of those 3 parts or focus on only 2 of those parts, or if your research question has 4 parts instead of 3, all of those would be fine alternatives. So you have composed your research question, you have done the research, you have found things that are new and interesting, and now it is time to relate that research. And the process that you will use to relate that research is the process of creating genres. We know from our assignment sheet that you will need 5 genres total. Of those genres, 3 will be created, 2 will be found. We will get into the distinction between those here in a moment, but basically, did you create the genre? Did you write the article? Did you write the song? Did you make the YouTube video? That is a created genre. Did you find the abstract in a journal? Did you find the newspaper article? Did you find the song? Those would be found genres. Each genre needs to make a specific point or a small number of discrete points. The genre has to exist for a reason, and it has to be presenting some of the analysis that you did on the research that you made in relation to the research question, which is also to say that all genres must be tied to research and presented in service of answering your research question. Before we move on, another important kind of caveat here. Not every genre needs to have research necessarily entwined or presented with it. A haiku, a joke, a cartoon panel, a bumper sticker are not good mediums for presenting research, but they are fine mediums for presenting points. And then your footnote would be where you would discuss the research that went into it. I'm going to give you some examples of a couple very successful genres and one unsuccessful genre. Invariably, I'm going to get at least 2 papers on cannabis legalization and multi-genre research project because that tends to be a subject that is of particular interest to college students. And there's a number of very good genres that you can use to represent research that you have done. I've had students present a fictional email exchange between a lawyer and a client discussing all of the ways that a nonviolent drug charge can be absolutely disruptive to one's life. I've had students create charts or graphs that they have made from data that they have collected, say, discussing the disparities in sentencing between white and black drug offenders. I've even had students write fictional newspaper articles discussing the correlative data between a rise in traffic fatalities pre and post legalized cannabis in Colorado. All of those are fine. Those are three great genres. They do reflect research. They do make a point. And then I've got the pot brownie recipe genre. Sigh. This is not a good genre, but they keep showing up, and I'm not sure why they show up. I don't know if students have assumed that I'm a little uptight and I need to chill out, or if it's because my hair comes down over the top of my ears. I must be some Led Zeppelin blaring long-haired hippie type. Neither of those is a particularly flattering image of your professor, so let's just avoid that. But there are more important reasons why the edibles recipe genre is not a good one, and it's mostly because it does not relate to the central question that is being asked in the research question, which is cannabis legalization a good thing for our state or our nation? Also, the type of research that it represents is really just going into Google and writing pot brownie recipe. So that's not particularly interesting either. So let's avoid that. Attached to each of your genres, that is including the 3 created and the 2 found, so you will have a total of 5 footnotes. You will include your footnote. And the footnote needs to relate the following information. What research went into the creation of the genre, right? Again, research needs to be represented in the genres themselves. Right? Even if you don't have the research within the language of the genre, it needs to inform your construction of the genre and the point you are trying to make. Also, footnotes need to justify the choice of genre that you made. Why a haiku and not an abstract from a fictional research journal? Why a newspaper article and not a brochure? Why a YouTube video and not a poem? Right? Different genres are more effective at doing different things, and so you need to justify those artistic or stylistic choices that you made. Also in your footnote, you need to relate the main point of the argument that the genre is attempting to make. Right? If you were to distill down into, say, a topic sentence what the point of the genre is, that also needs to be included in the footnote. Note that successful footnotes are usually between 6 to 8 sentences long. You will have in-text citation in them. Now, if you are presenting a genre that is fairly beefy, like say a newspaper article, something with a 500 or more word count to it, or an abstract from a fictional peer-refereed scholarly journal that might be about 250 to 300 words, your footnote could be a bit shorter, right? You might be able to get by with a 3 or 4 sentence footnote. On the other hand, if you're including a genre like a haiku or a joke where you will really need to fill in the gaps, those footnotes will tend to be fairly beefy. Now, the way that you put a footnote in your paper is in your Word document, you will go to the Insert tab and then to Insert Footnote, and it will make it for you. We can take a look here at the highlighted bits on our assignment sheet, and we can see that each of those corresponds with a footnote on the bottom of the page, right? So that Roman numeral 1 at the end of the definition corresponds to the first footnote under that line where I'm talking about why I chose that particular definition, what research went into the creation of that genre, all of that good stuff. And the 2 at the top of the Dear Class for the letter does the same thing for my second genre, which is the genre of a letter to a class. Now, how do we know if our genres are created or found genres? It's fairly simple. Did you create it? Created genres are ones where you did the writing, the interviewing, the graphing, the YouTubing, the recording, the composing, the sewing, the game designing, or anything else, right? Did you do research, find something that was interesting to you, and then construct a genre where you tried to relate the analysis of that research yourself? Then you are dealing with a created genre. On the other hand, Found genres are ones where you did the inserting, the copy-pasting, the compiling, or the including of any sort. So if I find a newspaper article in the New York Times or some other reputable publication that makes a point that I think is interesting and helps to answer my research question, and I include that newspaper article whole cloth into my paper, that is a found genre, and of those you are allowed 2. If, on the other hand, I do research from one or more sources and I construct my own newspaper article in a fictional newspaper under a fictional author's name, then that is a created genre, and that would count towards one of my 3 created genres. Once you have completed all 5 of your genres, it's time to turn your attention to the thing that comes first in the paper, but which I highly suggest you write last, and that is the preface. The preface will more closely resemble the other assignments that we have done in this class, which is to say that it will have MLA formatting. You will include a header in the upper left-hand corner, your last name and page number in the upper right-hand corner. It will be double-spaced, Times New Roman, 12-point font, 1-inch margins. You will have in-text citation. In the preface, you need to detail for me what your research question was and what your research process was. If you were able to come to a conclusion, tell me what conclusion you came to. Now sometimes, and some research questions are more prone to this than others, you may have learned a lot about your subject, but you would still be in the position where you are unsure what the answer is. That's fine, and you can detail that uncertainty also in the preface. Now the preface should be about 500 words. If you're able to get through your research question, your research process, and what conclusion, if any, you came to, and you find yourself still short of that 500 words, 500 word-ish requirement for the preface, you can also start to detail your creation process for your genres. Take me through how you chose the genres that you did, what stylistic choices you were considering, and that sort of thing. And you should find yourself at 500 words very soon. The last thing that will show up in your multi-genre research process is the works cited page, and the works cited page will resemble every other works cited page you have constructed for this class. Note that Al at Purdue is your friend. Familiarize yourself with it. Go to it with questions on MLA formatting. If you check out Al at Purdue and you're still not sure how to best cite something, feel free to shoot me an email or a text message. I will be more than happy to get back to you. Note that for the multi-genre research project, we have 4 sources minimum. Usually I would require that one of those sources be electronic and one of those sources would be print, but in this case, since I want you all to shelter in place and be safe, we are going to not have any requirement on a print source. If you want all 4 of your sources to be electronic, that would be fine. And you will keep MLA formatting with your works cited page. And that's it. You've completed it. You have finished the multi-genre research project. Let me know if you do have any questions. Thank you so much.